The public cannot understand how an $8 million barn laced with private security, despite being the most protected property likely in the city here, maybe in Canada, it already has RCMP and parliamentary policing. They had a private detail outside during the construction phase. They have an elevator that nobody knows where it goes.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the witnesses for being here today. We appreciate it. First off, who approved this expenditure? Either of you can answer.
So again, what happens in terms of Treasury Board involvement, it is the approval of the corporate plan, as well as the capital and operating budgets. The plan and the budgets cover major activities and significant line items within the budgets. So in this case, I think of this particular project, it would be rolled up in a higher level line because these are really meant to be higher level documents.
Okay. How many floors are contained within the $8 million barn project?
How many?
How many stories? How many floors?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I know that it's a vehicle storage facility, and based on the pictures, it seems to be a one-story building, but I have not visited it, so the National Capital Commission could probably provide you with details about the building, its size, number of floors, and so on.
If it is in fact a one-story or one-floor building or barn, can you explain why it has an elevator?
Well, in that case, it must have multiple stories. The building is, my understanding based on publicly available information, is it serves a number of functions, including vehicle storage, it's a repair garage, it's equipment and tool storage, it's a workspace. My understanding is that the National Capital Commission uses this building for operational equipment to be able to manage the 79 acres of land on Rideau. But in terms of how...
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. My point is, if you can see in the picture, I don't know if I can table these, Chair. There's no French and English documents, but just the photo I think is important. It's clearly a one-story building that has an elevator. So does the elevator go up or down? And if it goes down, what's under there?
The question would have to be answered by the National Capital Commission. I would be speculating. I would assume if it's a garage, if there is an elevator, it could be that it's to be able to move equipment up or down potentially. But I'm really speculating, so the National Capital Commission should be able to answer those questions for you.
Can you explain why $5,870 was spent on fiber optic cabling for the $8 million barn project? So we know that it has an elevator, we know that it's one story, and it's fully equipped with fiber optics. So I'm just curious why it needed the fiber optics to store vehicles and tools in it.
The National Capital Commission would be able to answer that question as the requirements in terms of what they needed to be able for the operation building. They would need to be able to define or explain why that was necessary.
I appreciate that. So back home in Miramichi, Grand Lake, most of us have a building or a barn, a baby barn, a storage shed. Depending on where you live and where you grew up, you might call it something different. But none of our storage sheds or barns cost $8 million. None of them have elevators, and none of them have fiber optics. As a matter of fact, the people in my riding don't have access to fiber optics. In my hometown of Blackville, as an example, we're a small municipality. We have satellite internet and other options. We don't have fiber optics, so it's really hard for the public to understand how much this type of waste would be put into an $8 million barn. Can you explain the marketing and communications firm and why it was engaged for nearly $6,000 on the $8 million barn?
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, that would be a question that would have to be directed to the National Capital.
Can you guys answer any questions? That's a better question. Are you here to answer questions or to deflect?
So,
which one?
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Ms. Khalid.
Thanks, Chair. I think when we invite witnesses to committee, we owe them the respect and not to badger. So I would ask through you, Chair, if Mr. Stewart can be a little bit more respectful to our witness.
One question like that is certainly far from badgering. Mr. Stewart, I'll turn it back to you. These obviously two witnesses have certain lines of responsibility, and just for everyone's awareness, the NCC will be coming in to see us. We anticipate after the recess week. Back to you, Mr. Stewart, and I did pause the clock for you. The clock for you have about just under 2 minutes.
So there was a marketing firm, communications firm engaged. Do you know why?
So the short answer to the question is no. And what I would say is...
Does the Treasury Board know why?
No, we do not. That would be a question that you'd have to address to the
Nobody
National
knows
Capital
anything.
Commission.
Were any of the construction contracts... actually, no. What was the initial approved budget for the $8 million barn?
So within the National Capital Commission's corporate plans, what they identify is their overall expenditures that they will be undertaking based on their entire budget, and they break that budget down based on large categories, including upkeep and maintenance of things like official residences, the entire suite of official residences. But this specific issue was not identified as a separate line item, so I don't know what the individual initial budget. But as part of their planning, they would have had budgets and budget projections.
Can you explain the procurement process for the $8 million barn?
So the National Capital Commission can answer, but one of the things that I would point out is, as a Crown corporation, the National Capital Commission operates as much more as a private sector entity. And therefore are not subject to most of the policies and rules from Treasury Board, for example, that would apply to departments or agencies.
So it's safe to say that the sole sourcing of contracts was more than possible.
They have flexibility in terms of how they undertake their procurements. I don't know what processes they use.
I'll take that as a yes. How many contracts in total?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't know the answer to that question.
So then you don't know how many subcontracts either. So you don't know how many bidders, you don't know anything about their procurement?
No, their procurement process is operational, and given the arm's length nature of Crown corporations, that is the responsibility of both of the organization to be able to manage itself in accordance with the applicable rules.
Have either of you been in...
That is the time. Mr. Stewart, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The witnesses today, through the chair, you were asked to come here to committee to testify on an $8 million barn, which nobody in Canada would think is acting on the best, for the taxpayers of our country, to have an $8 million barn laced with fiber optics, private security detail during construction, an elevator that potentially goes underground, but nobody knows where it goes. But most people's storage sheds don't have elevators and fiber op. But you didn't really say anything about the $8 million barn. You didn't say anything about its function. You didn't say anything about how the costs reached $8 million. And there's no accountability in any of that. So let's talk about the communication firm. Why does the Liberal government need a communication firm for an $8 million storage barn? Anybody can answer.
So, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I am not able to provide an answer to that question in terms of the specific expenditures, because again, they would have been part of the National Capital Commission.
That's fair. Is the $8 million barn going to be doing media interviews? Is that why? I mean, are they going to conduct interviews? Maybe the media would like to know how many tools are stored in the barn, or how many vehicles, or what makes of the cars, or... I mean, this does not make any sense. So if the two of you came in here today to be held accountable, we actually are going to have to get some answers. Have either of you been inside the $8 million barn? No?
I have not, Mr. Speaker.
No, I have
What's
not.
in there? Have you seen pictures of the inside? What's inside of it?
I've seen the picture that you had referenced before, sir. That's the picture that I've seen. I have not had a chance to visit it as of yet.
Well, is there anything you can tell us about the $8 million barn that the that nobody else knows but the two of you? Is there anything you could inform us on because I asked you about contracts, you didn't know who got them. You did know that it was flexible, less scrutiny than normally. What has the Treasury Board done to make certain that this aligned with government priorities?
Mr. Chair, as I've explained in the past, the corporate plan outlines the major activities that would be undertaken by the NCC and that they were planning to undertake. That plan was checked to see whether it was in line with the mandate of the Crown Corporation, in line with broader government priorities, and whether it was financially sustainable or not. Like I said, we do not detail project by project within corporate plans. There's a reason for that, so that it respects the independence of the Crown Corporation to manage within their funds, within their budgets, and in line with the
Okay, thank you for that.
individual business requirements.
So the Treasury Board is perfectly fine with it and feels it's a good expenditure? It meets targets? Is that what you're saying here today?
Again, the corporate plans are submitted by the responsible minister to the Treasury Board.
Well, I think with all due respect, there are no responsible ministers, as we've seen over and over and over drug out through this committee. At any point in the project, did anyone at the Liberal government stop to suggest that maybe $8 million is too much to spend on a barn? And if you want me to call it a storage shed, I will. I have one of those. It's not heated. It doesn't have internet capabilities. It does have electricity. You can turn a light on in there. Certainly isn't worth $8 million. So did anyone ever stop to think it was too much money?
I think the question that you asked was whether the government did. Again, I think the National Capital Commission could let you know what information they would have provided to during their work. From an overall perspective, as I indicated before, from a corporate plan perspective, these are not detailed. And
was there no way to build a storage facility, $8 million barn facility at Rideau Hall for less than $8 million? Should it have cost $8 million?
So again, the National Capital Commission will be able to provide you with more answers. I think my understanding is that
Thank you for that. I'm curious to understand your opinions of the $8 million barn, and clearly you're worried about a few processes and there's no accountability. I don't feel like there's any accountability for the $8 million barn. The public cannot understand how an $8 million barn laced with private security, despite being the most protected property likely in the city here, maybe in Canada, it already has RCMP and parliamentary policing. They had a private detail outside during the construction phase. They have an elevator that nobody knows where it goes. It costs $8 million.
And thank you, Mr. Stewart. That